I feel like being into anime is a lot more common these days compared to even like 10 years ago. Maybe everybody on Earth not properly socializing for 2 years had something to do with it, but I definitely hear people talking about watching Attack on Titan or My Hero Academia without having to think twice, and the same extends into older shows like Naruto or Dragon Ball Z. But out of all the shows I mentioned, there's one that, while still very popular across the world, never seemed to become a household name, at least not North America. No bonus points for guessing the title of the video, it's One Piece. I can think of a couple reasons as to why the series didn't have the greatest run over here, but a lot of great foreign media has issues with localization and dubbing and stuff like that. Regardless of the stuff in the past though, we have something to look forward to in the future. A few weeks ago, Netflix revealed the main cast for their live-action adaptation of One Piece, but the existence of this series was confirmed long before that. Now, live-action anime adaptations don't exactly have the greatest track record, and if it's bad, then nothing really changes. But if it's good, this could be another rare chance for the series to find its place in the general public's eye. It's pretty much a question of whether Netflix is gonna fuck it up or not, and in my attempt to ensure that this video won't become obsolete after the live-action series actually releases, I'm gonna try to answer some questions I think people would have about One Piece, regardless of the Netflix series' quality. I think the most obvious question once again leads us to the title. Like, if the series sucks, then maybe people will try to gravitate to the better versions of One Piece that are available. And if the series is good and you just want more of the story, you'll be led in the same direction. So, how do you get into One Piece? First, I think we have to answer the question of, what is One Piece? Again, I'm keeping those who started with the Netflix version in mind, so it shouldn't matter whether you know what a weekly Shonen Jump is or not. No question is too obvious to answer here. With that in mind, One Piece is a manga series written by Eiichiro Oda. If you aren't familiar with manga, they're just Japanese comic books with a few notable differences from the ones most of us are probably familiar with. Firstly, they're usually printed in black and white, and they read in the opposite direction. Physical copies of One Piece will almost always have a warning on the back page telling you to start from the rightmost page. Now, I'm telling you all of this because, yeah, you could answer the question of, how do I get into One Piece with read the manga? Video over, right? Well, if you've ever heard anything about One Piece, it's probably that it's long. Like, really long. To put that into perspective, the Netflix adaptation is supposedly going to cover the East Blue saga. East Blue in this case refers to the first part of the series where the main character is gathering friends for his pirate crew. You want to know how long this part of the story is? In the manga, the East Blue saga is exactly 100 chapters. 100 entire chapters constitutes the beginning of the story in One Piece. The length of the series is definitely the biggest hurdle to overcome when trying to recommend One Piece to people, and I don't blame you if this has made you skeptical about trying it. But don't go anywhere, there's still a lot to talk about. I know I made 100 chapters seem like a lot, but the average chapter contains around 17 pages, and because it's a comic, it's not like the pages are going to be full of text. The visual elements are a big aspect. For me, one volume took around half an hour to read from front to back, and this one contained 10 chapters. So really you could read everything the Netflix version adapted in around 5 hours. Your own reading speed will obviously affect this, but you could easily do this if you have an entire afternoon to kill. Again, if all you needed was for me to say, read the manga, then you probably didn't need me to say it. But I am trying to be comprehensive for newcomers, and I also understand that reading manga can be a tough sell for people. For example, if you prefer reading a physical book instead of staring at a screen, then all I can say is good luck, because reading the entire series using physical copies is going to get pretty expensive pretty fast. For most people, the only viable way is to read the manga online, be it through legal means or less than legal means. Online readers also have the option to read the digitally colored manga, which a lot of people do prefer. There is one major way of experiencing One Piece that I haven't talked about yet: the anime. The One Piece anime is... well, it's complicated. There are a lot of opinions that exist about the anime adaptation, but they're just opinions. And today I'm focusing on the facts. The fact of the matter is that the One Piece anime has a lot of filler. Up front, if you just want to watch the East Blue part of the anime, which consists of episode 1 to episode 53, then it's fine. However, the first major instance of filler shows up at episode 54. Bit of a side tangent here. If you're used to Netflix shows, or just regular TV in general, you're probably familiar with shows being categorized into seasons. Even though official streaming services that host One Piece do categorize the episodes into seasons, this isn't really accurate. One Piece is not a seasonal anime. Usually in a normal TV show, a single season contains a narrative, often starting at the season premiere and ending at the season finale. Obviously, it's possible to have a greater overarching story between seasons, but in the case of One Piece, the story is categorized by story arc titles. At the risk of not sounding like this one ProZD video, which, let's be real, I already kind of do at this point,
you should read the manga!
These story arcs have names like Orange Town or Water 7, usually just being named after whatever location the story takes place in. So yeah, long explanation basically just to say that you'll probably get people saying, "Have you reached Reverse Mountain yet?" as opposed to saying, "Are you on season 2?" Now back to talking about filler. Filler content refers to things added in the anime adaptation that weren't originally in the manga, meaning that it mainly consists of characters, storylines, and locations that don't have an effect on the original storyline whatsoever. Beyond this, there are 3 types of filler: filler episodes, filler arcs, and padding. A filler episode is essentially just an episode where nothing happens. The story is self-contained within the 22-minute episode, and since it has no effect on the greater story, it can be skipped entirely. Filler arcs are much of the same, however the events are not limited to a single episode. If you go through the series using a filler guide, then it's easy to avoid both of these types of filler. The last and worst type of filler is padding. This is when an episode is made, and while it does contain content that is actually related to the main story, the content is drawn out to fill the 22-minute time slot. This can involve adding in extra shots or camera angles that aren't necessary, extending certain scenes, extending certain shots, and just generally slowing the pace down to a crawl. The One Piece anime adds in a lot of padding, and for this reason I do not recommend it. Now I will reiterate, East Blue is generally pretty good in terms of keeping the filler and padding low, but after that, it gets pretty bad and it only ever gets worse. Any way you look at it, One Piece is a time investment, but making a long series even longer is a great way to make people less likely to check it out. I do think the anime makes a very good companion to the manga. Certain scenes do genuinely come to life with the music and voice acting, and honestly, knowing what characters sound like really does make reading the manga more enjoyable, since you can imagine the words you're reading with the character's voice or inflections in your head. There are a lot of people who love the anime, and it's been their preferred viewing method for years. All I'm saying is that I value your time, and I don't want you to have to watch something that's overly long if you're not even sure you're gonna enjoy it. If you do want a version of the anime without all the filler and padding, I really need to recommend One Piece. This is a fan-made project that re-edits the anime to remove anything that's not from the manga, meaning all the filler I just talked about is non-existent in this version. It's not perfect, but for a fan project with zero budget and a fraction of the staff that Toei has, I think it's pretty good. If you're interested in this series, I highly recommend checking out their website and Discord server. They have a comprehensive spreadsheet showing how much added padding they've cut out, and guides to get newcomers started. Take it from someone who chose to sit through the uncut anime during middle school. One Piece turns even the most notoriously slow sections of the anime into an actual good viewing experience. The biggest issue is that some of the earlier story arcs still haven't been edited, but once you reach a certain point, you never have to use anything other than One Piece, and the project is constantly being worked on. Another thing I want to mention is that, because it's a fan project, it's not going to be as easy to watch. If you're familiar with things like Plex or Telegram, then you have nothing to worry about. But if you're someone whose household gaming console has just been relegated to being the Netflix machine, then it's going to be a little more work if you want to access One Piece, which is a shame. My goal for this video is to try and make getting into this series as accessible as possible, and even having a slight barrier to entry kind of prevents that. but that's the nature of a project like this which isn't officially endorsed. So, what have we learned? One Piece is a long series. The Netflix version has adapted the first 100 chapters, or the first 53 anime episodes. If you want to watch these episodes, go ahead, but for the best experience, check out One Piece. And if you're from the future and you don't want to re-experience what has been shown in the Netflix version, then I guess start at either Chapter 101, Episode 62, or the Reverse Mountain arc in One Piece. This last section will cover a few other things that I think might be useful to know. If you really don't like reading the manga, and subtitles take the fun out of watching a show for you, there is a competent English dub made by Funimation. One Piece does have some arcs available with the English dub, but the vast majority only have the Japanese audio with subtitles. I should also mention that all the original Japanese episodes are officially available for free on Funimation's website, but if you want the English dub, you have to pay for their subscription service. Funimation's subtitles also aren't perfect, but they're somewhat better than fan translations. Sometimes. The official manga translations are handled by Viz, and you can read the manga for free on their website, but only the 3 most recent chapters. That's great if you're caught up to weekly releases, but if you're just starting out, they make you pay for it. Finally, the One Piece subreddit always has info on which sites are recommended for official releases of the anime and manga. Even if you don't use Reddit, which I don't blame you for, subreddits are usually good if you want a collection of info like this. I'm hoping this video will still be relevant by the time the Netflix series actually releases. If you're from the far-off future of beyond 2021, please let me know in the comments if the series was bad or not. No matter how the Netflix version turns out though, I hope this video has at least somewhat helped you jump into the vast ocean that is One Piece.